And a good Tuesday morning to you. Welcome into the Nick Craig Show, streaming live this morning on YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. Don't forget that you can take the show with you 24/7 on demand by checking out the Nick Craig Show in your favorite podcast app. You can also listen online by visiting the website, nickcraig.com. Our show this morning, as always, is brought to you in part by Melissa Gott and the amazing team over at the Law Group here in Wilmington. Visit them online, lawgroupnc.com. We'll hear more from them coming up a little bit later on in the program this morning. Well, yesterday, if you missed the Monday edition of the show, it's not very often that you've got to listen to every episode. I, of course, appreciate those that listen and check out the show every day. But kind of a prerequisite, setting the ground floor on what we're going to talk about this morning. I think you need to go and listen to Monday's show. We covered a miserable story, a miserable situation that unfolded in Charlotte over just before the weekend, late in the day on Friday, where you had a 24-year-old individual who was stabbed in the chest on the Charlotte light rail. This was at the hands of a two-time deported illegal immigrant from Honduras, who was deported in 2018 by the first Trump administration, deported again during the Biden administration, and sometime after the second deportation in 2021, came back into the United States. The Department of Homeland Security doesn't know exactly when that happened, but the individual made their way back into the United States and decided that the way to assimilate to American society was to be drunk on the Charlotte Light Rail Friday, get into a verbal altercation with somebody. When the altercation doesn't pan out the way that you want, you pull out a knife and stab that person in the chest, because that's, typical conflict resolution that we see of issues. Being drunk and obnoxious, illegally in the country, riding the Charlotte Light Rail without paying for it, and then stabbing somebody in the chest, right? That screams American freedom to me this morning. That's what's on everybody's mind. So go back and listen to yesterday's show if you missed it, because it sets the groundwork for the title of today's show and the topic of our program this morning, which is the importance of local government. Now, this is something that if you've been a longtime follower of mine, this is not something that's new. This is something that I've talked about a lot, and it's something that is, I can't stress the level of importance. I mean, I really can't. It's not like I can't sit here and say time and time again the importance of local government. Now, obviously, local government doesn't get the big, sexy, flashy news headlines that federal government issues and topics do, right? If you are a casual news observer and you flip through the channels, maybe you turn on Fox for a little while, you'll flip on over to CNN and see what's going on there. You are not, of course, going to hear about what is going on in your local community, right? There's not going to be a story on Fox News or CNN about property tax rates in New Hanover County. Not because it's not an important issue, but because it's just not topical for a large-scale audience. And, one of the things that we've seen kind of the erosion of over the last couple of decades is local news coverage. I mean, it's a big-time problem. It's a big-time issue. I mean, just look at what's going on locally now. You've got and I don't mean any disrespect to anybody that works at these outlets, but you've got the Wilmington Star News. It's a shell of itself. It's delivered by the Postal Service now, so you're getting 3-day-old news put into your mailbox. There's maybe a person or two that works locally that covers some local issues. And I'm not saying that those people are not doing a good job, but in comparison to what that looked like 30 or 40 years ago, it's a skeleton. It's a shell of what it once was. So newspapers, and it's a dying medium, right? I mean, why wait for a newspaper, in this case, now no longer to be thrown on your doorstep at 4 o'clock in the morning, but to come with your mail at 3:15 in the afternoon? Why would you subscribe and wait for that to come to your mailbox when you can pull up your phone at any point in time, any point throughout the day, and get caught up with what's going on? So you don't have much coverage there. A couple of other media outlets here in town as well, two TV stations, WECT and WWAY. So you've got limited coverage there. You've got an NPR station, of course, and WHQR. Port City Daily does probably the most extensive local coverage of kind of more in-depth political issues. WHQR does some of that as well. So you get some emphasis there, but many folks on the right, and rightfully so, don't read some of the coverage coming from those outlets because of the political bias and the political agenda that is seen in many of their stories. And that's just the God's honest truth. It's not every story, it's not every topic, but there's no question about it. When you read coverage from WHQR, from Port City Daily, you will often see, not every time, but often see a left-wing media bias with that. So many folks have just kind of tuned that out. They're not interested in political bias. They're not interested in any sort of, political lean or bend. They're just trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And of course, on television news, the stories are short and sweet, and 2 minutes, 90-second stories. I mean, they're not in depth. And then, of course, now there is, and has not been for now the better part of a year, there's not any conservative local morning talk show on the radio here in Wilmington after my exiting from Wave back in July of 2024. So that is the current media landscape in Wilmington. And part of that is because local government, for the vast majority of people, is just frankly not that freaking interesting. And I say that because there's a reason that the coverage exists the way that it does. There is a lack of engagement and a lack of involvement from the citizenry locally. And I'm not sitting here this morning to point the finger. I'm not trying to shame individuals or shame you into this or shame you into that. I'm just stating an honest to God fact. People, for the most part, don't really follow, and because they don't follow, I think it's a fair assessment to say they don't really care what's going on locally. They're busy. They're raising their family. They're raising their children. They've got working your 9 to 5, running around, chaperoning your kids around to sports and band practice and all of the extracurricular activities. You're busy. You got stuff going on. I'm not here to be the shame police. I get it. I understand it. It's a full-time investment. Yeah, it's hard to be a casual observer of local government. And so you've got a little bit of I think what I would describe as a chicken and egg kind of scenario, because overall, generally people are not all that interested in local government and what's going on. You don't get a lot of coverage of it, right? Because when you look at the news business, looking at television, looking at print and these other formats, they are writing stories and covering topics and issues that resonate with a local audience. And if you have got people that are generally kind of tuned out or checked out of what's going on locally, you're not going to expense resources and time covering something that, if I'm being blunt and honest with you, most people don't care about. They just don't. I mean, don't take my word for it. I mean, just look at the election results in New Hanover County back a little over a month ago. I mean, the top vote getter for the Wilmington City Council and J.C. Lyle received just shy of 12,000 votes. There's over 100,000 or close to 100,000 registered voters in the city of Wilmington. I mean, you've got a very large populace in the city of Wilmington, and the top vote getter for city council received less than 12,000 votes. And this isn't a one-off thing. This is consistent. This is something that we see frequently with municipal elections, off-year elections. People are just not interested. They don't vote. And the data and the numbers are on my side and back up the fact that if more people were engaged and involved in the political process, then you would have higher turnouts in municipal elections, which tends to be around 20-ish%. That's not high engagement. That's not high involvement. And so again, I go back to the chicken and the egg. People, for the most part, are busy and don't have the time to dig into it, so they don't care. Therefore, media doesn't cover it because people don't care. It's a vicious cycle, right? Something and somebody has to break in the cycle. Because one thing that I can say to you for certain this morning is that the most important decisions, the most important things that are affecting your day-to-day life, affecting the quality of your life day in and day out, affecting the place that you work, the place that you live, the place that you play, those decisions are not being made in Washington, D.C. Those decisions are not being made in the halls of Congress. Those decisions are not being made in the Oval Office. And I'll state this, these decisions, for the most part, aren't even being made in our state capital 2 hours up the road in Raleigh. Those decisions are happening right here. They're happening in New Hanover County. They're happening in Pender and Brunswick and all the cities, Wilmington, Leland, Surf City, right? There are decisions that are being made locally. Carolina, Curie, Wrightsville, as you head down into southern Brunswick, Southport, Bolivia, these towns, these municipalities, that's where decisions are being made. That is, when you look at, step back and say, what is having the largest effect? And effect is not a bad thing. I'm saying, what is having the largest effect on my day-to-day life? It's your local government. Funding for schools, property taxes, public safety, whether we're talking about a municipal police department or a sheriff's department, fire, parks and rec, and the list goes on and on of things that, for the most part, very little, if anything, from Washington, D.C., very little, if anything, from Raleigh. Those decisions are happening right here. And I will admit that it is very disheartening for me, somebody that has tried to, over the last couple of years, spark some interest in this. I spent a lot of time, and to some negative feedback from time to time from my previous employer, kind of getting into the minutia on local government. It's not sexy. I get it. It's not always an exciting topic. The latest at a Wilmington City Council or New Hanover County Commission meeting isn't front page news. It's not all that interesting from a general news perspective, right? You look at everything that's going on day in and day out. It doesn't break the top story, but it is sure as hell very, very important for your day-to-day lives. And it's why on Friday's show, which if you missed that, I'd encourage you to check out Friday's show as well. We are going to keep a huge level of increased interest on the Wilmington City Council going forward, right? Under the leadership changes and the leadership control that exists there now, which is a 7-0 Democrat City Council. What are the decisions that they're making? What kind of discussions are they having? Where are things trending? And to back up this kind of point in discussion this morning, I've got a meeting agenda from the Charlotte City Council meeting last night. As I mentioned, and if you listened to the show on Monday, you are aware of the fact that a 24-year-old individual was stabbed in the chest on the Charlotte Light Rail around 5 p.m. on Friday. And so that's a big issue for a local government to deal with, because public transportation, whether we're talking about CATS, that's the Charlotte Area Transportation System, or we're talking about Wave Transit here in New Hanover County, which is our large public transit system, those decisions, those funds, and the way that program is operated, a lot of that is dictated by your municipal governments, the city of Wilmington, other local governments, and New Hanover County. Those decisions are being made locally. And so you would assume, after now the second high profile act of violence on the Charlotte Light Rail system in the span of just 3 months, that the Charlotte City Council would have, when they convened for their meeting last night with new members being sworn in, there is all but one Republican on the council. Everybody else is a Democrat. There's one sole Republican. That they would have taken what they had learned over the last 3 months, whether it was Irina Zaruska being brutally murdered by a dangerous repeat offender, or a twice deported illegal immigrant stabbing a guy in the chest on Friday, that the local government, again, that the local government in Charlotte would have taken some action last night. And to the surprise of absolutely nobody, they failed the test. They absolutely failed the test. Here is item number 24 from the Charlotte City Council meeting last night. Again, this comes, last night was Monday, so about 4 days after somebody was stabbed on the Charlotte Light Rail. CATS, that's the Charlotte Area Transportation System, Marketing and Communication Services. Here are the actions. Approve a new contract with Sherry Matthews Group for marketing and communication services for the term of 1 year, and authorize the city manager to renew the contract for up to 3 years, 1-year terms with the possible price adjustment, and to amend the contract consistent with the purpose for which the contract was approved. So here's the explanation from the Charlotte City Council. The Charlotte Area Transportation System seeks to engage firms that can supplement CAT's internal resources by providing specialized expertise in areas such as general marketing, advertising, branding, public relations, public affairs, digital communications, community engagement, media planning, event planning, and crisis communications. The services are aimed at promoting CAT services, engaging with the community, and enhancing the public perception and the use of public transit in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. So instead of, maybe hiring more security, whether we're talking private security or whether we're talking sworn members of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, maybe that would help with the public perception, enhancing the public perception of public transit. I don't live in Charlotte. I do a radio show in Charlotte every morning, 5 to 6 a.m. on WBT. So I host that as part of my position at the Carolina Journal. So I'm pretty in tune with what's going on in Charlotte. I like to stay engaged in what's going on there, even though my show is not heavily focused on what's exactly going on in local government in Charlotte. It's a statewide news show. Always good to understand kind of the public perception of what's going on in a community. It makes you a much better talk show host. So since Arena was murdered 3 months ago, the ridership on public transportation across Charlotte has dropped significantly. And that makes sense. And I mentioned this yesterday morning. If you feel that you are putting yourself in an unsafe situation, human nature would tell you you're not going to do that, right? Whether it's walking down an unlit alley in the middle of the night, whether it's jumping on a public transportation, as humans, as basic general human nature, you try and stay out of unsafe situations. You don't actively put yourself in positions and situations that are, by definition, unsafe. And the public perception, backed up by the fact that a 23-year-old girl had her neck sliced open on the light rail train for doing nothing wrong, just sitting there coming home from work, people do not have a very positive outlook on public transportation in Charlotte. The public sentiment blows. People do not feel comfortable riding the light rail or taking advantage of some of the other services that are offered by CATS. They just don't. They are worried. They are nervous. They are scared about what they have read and seen over the last 3 months. And just to ask kind of a rhetorical question, can you blame them for that? Would you blame somebody in Charlotte for saying, man, that poor girl was murdered, had her neck sliced open by this mentally deranged lunatic? I don't want to. I'm not going to ride the light rail train. I'm not going to potentially risk my life. I'm not going to risk a situation for this. That's just natural human reaction. That is how you would expect people to react to something like that. So this has obviously been a big issue because, like most other public transit systems, it is it's a semi kind of government entity. There's a board set up. The funding, for the most part, comes from a county or a city. Again, it's unique and different in every single place. But for the most part, there's a government interest in having a vibrant public transportation system that people are using. And by the way, when people stop using it and you're taking in less money from fares, that means that the government now has to subsidize its operation. Just because you don't have as many people riding the Charlotte Light Rail, just because you don't have as many people riding the bus, you're still paying the bus drivers, you're still paying for gas, you're still paying for the operation of the system. You just have less people paying to use it. So it becomes an outsized burden on government, right? That's been one of the big issues, turning it local. That's been one of the big issues that Wave Transit, the public utility system here in New Hanover County, has struggled with now for quite some time. It's not a new story. I mean, public transit, and I always see people complaining about how Wilmington's public transit system sucks. Wilmington's not a big enough city to have a robust, vibrant public transportation system like Charlotte. It's just not a big enough city, folks. I mean, you can literally walk from the hub of where all the businesses are in downtown Wilmington in just a couple of blocks. I mean, let's not pretend that we're some sweeping crawling city that spans miles and miles. We're just not. I mean, the downtown area is really only dozen and a half blocks. It's not that huge. But Wave Transit has struggled with this. People don't take the bus. Getting from point A to point B is a huge pain in the ass. So they don't ride it. They don't take it. And that has put an outsized burden on local governments to continue to fund what is a loss leader. Because these are supposed to be ratepayer funded systems. When the rates are down or the rates are going away, it becomes very hard to justify that. Now, you've seen some transitions in Wave Transit. They've got the Ride Micro system. They've got some other programs that are in place to make the public transportation system similar to Uber or Lyft, which of course has had a huge impact on traditional public transportation systems, because if you really need to get from point A to point B and don't have a viable way to do it yourself, whether you're disabled or you don't have the finances to own a personal vehicle, pretty affordably, you can hop on an app, Uber, Lyft, or there's other services as well, and get from point A to point B pretty quickly. I mean, I could have a ride to downtown Wilmington here in probably the next 15 minutes, and I'm downtown. I'm good to go. I don't need to wait at a bus stop for a bus to take me downtown and stop, 15 times between here and downtown. I can order an Uber. I can order a Lyft. And so there's changes. It's an evolving industry. And so back to Charlotte, the public perception sucks right now over public transit because a woman was murdered 3 months ago on the train. Then on Friday, you had another individual, a drunk, twice deported illegal immigrant who had already been banned. This is a new detail that we're learning on the story this morning, who had already been banned from riding the Charlotte Light Rail. Of course, ignored that. Their enforcement mechanisms suck in Charlotte. So this guy, even though he was banned from the light rail system, was riding it anyway, was drunk, actively drinking on the train, verbally harassing and assaulting individuals, got into an altercation with somebody, pulled out a knife and stabbed him. So no surprise whatsoever, the public perception blows for CATS and the Charlotte Light Rail system. And the reason that I say that local government is so important, it's the front line of your freedom, that's the title of today's episode, is this could have been not solved. I don't like to use that word unless something is done. Solved is no more of a problem. This could have been dealt with in a much better way over the span of the last 3 months. But because of weak, soft on crime, Democrat control in Mecklenburg County and the city of Charlotte, it was not. Any logical person, which of course does not exist in areas like Charlotte, any logical person would have told you that in the immediate aftermath of Irina Zarutska, that we need to do whatever we need to. It doesn't matter what it costs or what the logistics look like. We need to have sworn law enforcement and or private security on every single train car is part of the Charlotte Light Rail system. That would have been the logical response, the logical approach to dealing with that situation. But leadership at CATS, the interim CEO and Brent Cagle, who we read his statement yesterday, this statement, oh, we've done so much since August to make it safer. That's just complete and total BS. They haven't done anything. They haven't done anything. If so, then there's no reason that a guy who was banned from the Charlotte Light Rail would have been able to get on the train Friday night if the enforcement was so great for the system. If there had been so much work done since the month of August, we probably wouldn't have this situation right now. And I noted this yesterday. I say probably because I can't speak in any absolute, guarantees. But we probably wouldn't have had the situation that we did on Friday. But because of spineless, weak, feckless leadership in Charlotte and in Mecklenburg County, we are in almost the exact same spot again that we were 3 months ago. With people asking serious questions about the future of public transportation, safety on public transit across the city of Charlotte. And so the city council last night decided that they were going to award a $3.4 million contract to the Sherry Matthews Group to run an advertising campaign to convince people that the Charlotte area transit system, CATS, the Charlotte Light Rail, and the other things under CATS are safe for people to ride. And so when I say that government in large part is useless, this is what I'm talking about. You had somebody stabbed just a couple of days before this council meeting last night. And instead of saying, you know what, enough is enough. Enough is enough. We're not going to put up with this anymore. We hear the pearl clutching. We listen to the hand wringing from Josh Stein and the mayor of Charlotte, Vi Lyles, and from the head of CATS about how we got to make sure that the public is safe. Public safety is paramount. Public safety is important. Public safety is this. Public safety is that. They have an opportunity to solve the problem, and they're unwilling to do it. Why are they unwilling to do it? Because they are incapable of making politically unpopular decisions. Let me explain. In many Democrat progressive circles, of which there are many in an area like Charlotte, it is a very, very deep blue area in North Carolina. There is still an incredible amount of criticism and animosity against law enforcement, against show of force. Right? These were the same people just a couple of years ago roaming the streets of Charlotte, roaming the streets of Raleigh, roaming the streets of Wilmington, yelling about how F the police, ACAB, all cops are bastards, defund law enforcement, defund the police. Just a couple of years ago, this was going on. Not 30 years ago, but like over the last 4 or 5 years, this was just going on. So these far left progressive groups are kind of leading the charge, leading the narrative. And the Democrats that control the city council in Charlotte, the Democrats that control Mecklenburg County, they don't want to piss off their base by saying, you know what we're going to do? We're going to hire a lot more police to make sure that they're on the Charlotte Light Rail, because that's politically unpopular. I know. It's not, it's pretty shocking to hear, because the idea that having police in place so that people don't get stabbed, somehow that's a bad thing, is the literal definition of insanity. And so this is the immediate action from the Charlotte City Council. And it's why getting involved and being engaged in local government is so incredibly important. Somebody was just stabbed Friday night, and their solution is to hire a PR firm, spend $3.4 million for some advertising campaigns to tell the citizens in Charlotte, ignore all the media coverage that you've heard over the last 3 months. Ignore all of that. Public transit is A-OK. Public transit is as safe as can be. Is that a solution to the problem? I don't think so. I can't get myself in any frame of mind where I can justify this making any sense whatsoever. I can't do it. There's nothing that I can look at here and go, oh, that makes a little bit of sense. No, it just doesn't. The whole thing is completely illogical. You just had somebody stabbed. The Irina Zarutska story 3 months ago gained international attention. News outlets all over the globe talking about the city of Charlotte and the violence that is taking place there. Just a couple of months ago, not 3 years ago, 3 months ago, folks. And so instead of making the hard decisions, instead of putting the resources where they need to be put, Democrats on the Charlotte City Council, led by Mayor Vi Lyles, have determined that spending $3.4 million on an advertising campaign is the best way to get riders back on public transportation in the city of Charlotte. You talk about the definition of insanity. Here it is on a piece of paper for you. Here's a novel concept. Maybe spend the $3.4 million hiring more law enforcement or hiring private security within the CAT system. Maybe that would be a better use of monies. Maybe that would be a better use of, we're not talking about a couple bucks here, folks. Almost $3.5 million. That's a pretty significant chunk of money. But that's what they decided to do. This is what weak leadership looks like. This is what being unable to make a tough decision, it looks like. And it's why strong leadership is so unbelievably important. Because strong leadership would not allow something like this to take place. Strong leadership would say, damn it, punch their fists on the table and say, enough is enough. Members of our community are no longer going to be assaulted, attacked, and killed on our public transportation systems. Strong leadership would say, this crap is done. Members of our community are not going to feel unsafe riding public transportation that they pay for. It's public transportation. You're funding it with your taxpayer dollars, and then you're paying to ride it. Strong leadership would say, enough is enough. We are taking back control of our government. That's what strong leadership would do. That's what strong leadership would say. And the fact that that didn't come to fruition last night continues my narrative and continues my thought that this is why Democrat control in local government is so incredibly bad. It's miserable. Plain and simple. This is an absolute joke. I was going to say, and when I was writing down some of my thoughts on this, I was going to say that this is unbelievable or unimaginable. I had to catch myself. I really did. I had to, splash some cold water in my face. Had to give myself a couple of slaps in the face to go, Nick, what are you saying? This isn't unbelievable. This isn't unimaginable. This is what Democrat leadership looks like. This is what complete exclusive Democrat control looks like. No ability to tackle the tough issues. No ability to have the tough conversations. We're just going to throw a bunch of money at a problem and cross our fingers that it's magically solved. I can guarantee you this. Spending $3.5 million to to hire a prominent advertising firm to run some television commercials about how public transportation is safe is not going to cause people to start riding the Charlotte light rail system again. I can guarantee you that getting billboards and buying ads on Facebook is not going to cause people to believe that it is safe to travel on public transit. I can guarantee it. Because violence still remains a major problem across Charlotte, whether it's on the light rail, whether it's on buses, or whether it's just in communities and neighborhoods across the city. It is following the exact same model of San Francisco, of Oakland, California, of Chicago, of St. Louis. The list goes on. Charlotte it's not just become it, but it's been a progress over the last couple of years, has continued to go deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of complete and total unsustainability. And that's where we're at. And I'm very fearful. And I don't say this to you lightly. I'm not saying this to make a joke. I am concerned here locally that we are going to start seeing similar situations unfold in the city of Wilmington. We obviously don't have a light rail system. Our public transportation system is, for all intents and purposes, not used. I mean, the ridership is just atrociously bad. Nobody uses it. And so while this exact scenario is very unlikely to unfold in Wilmington, the root kind of causes of this are already here. And I am genuinely concerned that it will not be long before we head into an unfortunate similar situation right here in our own backyard. We have, this is not me just kind of taking a wild guess. This isn't me throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. We've got examples of this in our own state. Look at Asheville. Look at Raleigh. Look at Durham. Look at Charlotte. Wilmington is the next one to fall. I don't say that lightly. I live here. I enjoy shopping here. I enjoy spending money here. I enjoy supporting local businesses in downtown Wilmington. I enjoy the services and the things that are offered in downtown. I appreciate that. I take advantage of it. I use those services. But I don't know how much longer that stuff stands. And, it's kind of funny. One of my good buddies, John Hinnon, he was the head of WDI, Wilmington Downtown Inc., back when the downtown revitalization happened over the last 20 years. And I will admit I have not been here long enough to have seen it, but speaking to him and other locals here in Wilmington, in the early 2000s, the 90s and early 2000s, people didn't go to downtown Wilmington. Yes, of course, it's always been a downtown area. There's always been some level of business, sure. But it was not a vibrant, thriving downtown area. It was not a place that people wanted to go on a Friday or Saturday night. There was a lot of violence. You had dilapidated buildings right on Front Street, vacant businesses, broken glass. It was a disaster. And thanks to leadership on the Wilmington City Council, thanks to groups like WDI and others, they revitalized downtown Wilmington to the place that it is today, where you go down there on almost any day of the week now, and you've got people, obviously this time of year a little bit different when it's 32 degrees outside, but in the spring and summer months, you go downtown anytime, any place, any day, middle of the week, and you'll have people strolling around downtown Wilmington. Families pushing strollers, enjoying downtown, shopping, eating, going to stores, checking out the riverfront. That wasn't going on here 20 years ago, at least not to the same extent, not to the exact same level. And the question that I'm racking around in my brain this morning is, how much longer does that exist? How much longer until these wacko, liberal, leftist policies start damaging downtown Wilmington? We've already seen it in part, right? Earlier this year, we covered the homeless issue that exists downtown. And you heard the public comment. You heard from individuals that were against, God forbid, the city of Wilmington dealt with a problem that was affecting businesses. God forbid that the Wilmington City Council dealt with problems that people were facing. They just didn't want to hear it. I played the public comment clips of people standing up there and saying, oh, it's really not as bad. You're criminalizing the homeless population. You're criminalizing this. You're criminalizing that. You can't do this. You can't do that. I want to play a clip for you again. This is the individual that owns Eagles Dare and the underground pour room right there at the intersection of Front and Market Street. His name is Joe. Politically, I don't know where he falls on the political spectrum. I'll be the first to admit I've hosted a couple events with him. Really, really nice guy. He spoke at a Wilmington City Council meeting back about 3 months ago and talked about the issue of homelessness in the city of Wilmington and the impact that it was having on him, right? So he's a private business owner. He owns Taco Baby as well. He's got 3 businesses in 3 different areas of downtown. He is a business owner. He is providing jobs to people within the city of Wilmington and our regional area. He's paying taxes, whether it's sales tax and property tax, to the city of Wilmington, to New Hanover County, to operate his business. He is somebody that is important for the continued vibrance in downtown. He is somebody that is important for the continued prosperity that our area sees. He's a very well-known, very prominent business owner. This is what he told the Wilmington City Council back on August the 5th of this year. Take a listen to this.
I've lived and worked here since 2009. I own the Eagles Dare bar and venue space, Taco Baby restaurant, and the Poorhouse bar. Okay, so ranging from Brooklyn Arts District to proper downtown. All right. The current challenges that people are dealing with downtown, whether it be talking about the unhoused community, juveniles late night, to just general upticks in violence. Council, something needs to be done. I'm literally, a bunch of business owners, a bunch of people representing downtown are pleading something needs to be done. Is it necessarily the ordinance being presented tonight? Is that the answer? I don't know, but what I'm pleading with you is something needs to be done. I get that this is there are layered issues here, and it's multifaceted, and there is no right answer, all right, or one quick answer, but again, something needs to be done. We have members of the unhoused community from sunup to sundown downtown, aggressively panhandling, committing lewd acts, open air drug use and alcohol use, all right? Those things, we have business owners that have to go to their businesses early to make sure that they're cleaning up feces at the entrance of their business before their clients come in to get their hair done. Something needs to be done. Okay? I watched families get catcalled, get hollered at on their way to go get ice cream. And I say to myself, that's a family that's never coming downtown again. All right? We have juveniles downtown, late night, hanging out predominantly in front of several establishments that are catering to underage or 18 and up crowds that are not downtown for any other reason than to be downtown. Literally throwing fireworks at people on Front Street over the 4th of July weekend. Something needs to happen. Back in just a handful of years ago, the task force was significantly more present. They knew us, we knew them, they knew who the players were. And I understand that the police department have their own issues right now themselves in terms of manpower. But again, something needs to be done and some presence needs to be felt. Whether it is this ordinance, whether it is a curfew for underagers downtown. Again, I don't know, but again, I'm pleading with you, something that needs to be done. There are other districts now. It used to be where are you going, beach or downtown. Now I've got Soda Pop, I've got Cargo District, I've got Up and Ogden. Those are all amazing spots. So for people to want to come downtown, we need to provide an environment that they actually want to come to. I'm running out of town, I'll leave you with this. Let me know when you want to go out. Meet me at Eagles Dare. We'll go out on a Saturday night. We'll load up in my car and we'll drive around.
So there's a local business owner. Again, he owns Eagles Dare, he owns Taco Baby, and he owns the underground Poorhouse right there at the corner of Front and Market. I would say accurately, unless he's not paying his taxes, that he is a very instrumental part in downtown Wilmington. He's got 3 businesses that he operates, I think, close to 7 days a week. He is providing a lot in terms of revenue to the city of Wilmington and New Hanover County. And you just heard the concerns he left. That was back in August when this whole debate once again sparked over homelessness. Luke Waddell's been fighting this battle for years. Charlie Reinbach fighting this battle for years, trying to convince the other Democrats on the council that this stuff has to be dealt with. And they kicked the can down the road. They pushed it on. Eventually, there was a vote that happened back just a couple of months ago, and hopefully that begins the solution to the problem. But now with the changes on council, I don't have any confidence that this is going to resolve itself. I don't have any confidence that this is going to get better. I just don't. I know there's a new police chief. He's in a tough situation now. I mean, the city of Wilmington is got its problems and things that it has to deal with. I've got confidence in him from everybody I've spoken to. I'll admit I've not spoken to him personally yet. I'm working on that. Hopefully, I don't know if it'll be an interview or just a private conversation and meeting. From all accounts, he's the man for the job. And I'm not disparaging him or the Wilmington Police Department in any way, shape, or form, of which, of course, I've been accused of in the past. This stuff has to be dealt with. And seeing what I see in Charlotte, seeing what I see in Raleigh, in Durham, and in Asheville, with the new leadership structure on the Wilmington City Council, I don't have confidence, folks. I hope I'm dead wrong because I like going to downtown Wilmington. I was just out there, 2 weeks ago. I was downtown walking around, went out to dinner, walked around, checked out. There was a little pop-up market right in front of the federal courthouse, right on the river. I love hanging out in downtown Wilmington. Really, I enjoy it a lot. I try to make it down there as often as I can, a couple of times a month at minimum. And so why is local government so important? It's because of situations like that. The decision to deal with people shooting up heroin in the middle of the street at broad daylight, 2:00 in the afternoon in Wilmington on a Saturday afternoon. Those decisions and the ways to mitigate that are not coming from Washington, D.C. The solution to that is not coming from our state capital in Raleigh. Those decisions to get that under control, the decisions to deal with that, need to be made locally, right here in our backyard. They need to be made by the leadership on the Wilmington City Council. They need to be made by the leadership on the New Hanover County Board of Commissioners to get that stuff under control. And I just don't have confidence that issues like this are going to be resolved under the new leadership structure. I am willing, and I have been accused plenty of times in the past of not being open-minded. I am open-minded. I am willing, and I am going to give this new city council, which is a 7-0 Democrat board, I'm going to give them a chance. I'm going to give them a shot. And when they do right, I will point it out. I will highlight it. You know, you can accuse me of being a partisan hack if you think that that's justified. I have no problem giving individuals credit where credit is due. I've done it, and I think that separates me from a lot of other folks in the media landscape. I will give Democrats credit when they do right. And if this conversation comes back up, which it likely will, maybe not as much this time of year, but as we head into next year, get back into the early spring and summer months, and you'll have a lot more people hanging out in downtown Wilmington, a lot more business, a lot more activity going on. When this problem comes back up, if Democrats stand strong on the city council and say, yep, this is a major problem, this is what we're going to do to deal with it, I'll be the first one using this microphone, using this platform to give them credit for it. But on the same side of the coin, if they fail to do it, if they continue to kick the can down the road and continue to talk about how they believe it's a problem, but refuse to do anything about it, I will be the first ones here criticizing them. I will give them a shot. I will give them a chance. I have no problem doing that whatsoever, unlike the left. When those on the opposite side of the political aisle do good, handle an issue in an appropriate manner, I have no problem giving credit for it. Zero. I've done it throughout my entire professional broadcasting career. No issue with that at all. But I can also say at the same time, my confidence level is not very high. And this is why I have said over the last couple of days, and I'll continue to stress, voters that are concerned about what's going on need to start showing up for local elections. We will have municipal elections rolling around in 2 years, 2027, there will be 3 seats and a mayoral seat up on the Wilmington City Council. Voters, you've got to get engaged in those elections. And in the meantime, and I'll do my best to keep you up to date with what the topics are and what's coming up, you've got to show up to these city council meetings and make your voice heard. Because right now, the public comment at the city council meeting is almost exclusively by those that are on the left-wing side of the political aisle. Almost exclusively. 2 Tuesdays, twice a month on Tuesdays, I sit down at 6:30 p.m. and watch almost through its entirety the Wilmington City Council meeting. It's not fun. It's not exciting. I will admit it is sometimes incredibly boring. Public rezonings and property condemnation. I mean, it's just a lot of it is boring as hell. I'll give you that. But we've got to be willing to show up and make our voices heard on this stuff. Because if not, it is going to run out of control, and it's going to happen in the snap of a finger. It's not going to take 20 years. It could happen within the span of just a couple of years. Comment coming in on our Rumble live chat this morning. Eagles Dare is a great venue. Went there in June. There was a homeless person playing in traffic, dancing around the venue seating, mumbling, falling down. Folks with kids were nervous. We all were. Well, there you go. I mean, it's a real concern. It's a real issue for anybody that has actually spent any time in Wilmington on a Friday or Saturday night. You've seen it. It's a real thing. It happens all the time. And so the question is, how does this council deal with this issue moving forward? That's kind of the million-dollar question for me this morning. I will continue to stress this. It's going to be one of the cornerstones of this program as we flip the calendar into 2026 coming up here in just a couple of weeks. Community involvement in these meetings, making sure that our voices are heard while we don't have anybody that is standing with our ideals on the dais is going to be incredibly, incredibly important. I'll have links to all of this in the show notes this morning over at patreon.com/Nick Craig. You can support the show financially for as little as $5 or $10 a month. You can also set a custom amount if you believe you're getting $20 worth of value each and every month. Patreon.com/Nick Craig. You'll get access to those daily show notes and more, including our holiday hangout. That'll be coming next week. Stay tuned to your Patreon account in your email for the link to that. We get together once a month on a Zoom call. We talk about the current news topics, whether they be local, state, or national, cover all of that. We do that once a month for the amazing folks that support the show financially over at patreon.com/Nick Craig. Appreciate the continued support there. I also want to thank the Law Group here in Wilmington for their continued support this morning and let you know that when legal challenges arise, make sure you put your trust in the Law Group. Since 2003, it's now been more than 22 years, their experienced attorneys have provided high-quality, affordable legal services across Eastern North Carolina. Whether you're facing a divorce, navigating a real estate transaction, or maybe you're in a position where you need a strong defense, the Law Group has your back. Their dedicated team ensures your questions are answered and issues are resolved as quickly as possible. Great news, folks. They're located in downtown Wilmington and just a phone call away at 910-251-6088, or you can visit them online at their website, lawgroupnc.com. Give them a call, 910-251-6088 or lawgroupnc.com. The Law Group, experience and dedication you can rely on. Appreciate Melissa Gott and her team for their continued support of the Nick Craig Show. That's going to do it for a Tuesday edition. Don't forget that the Nick Craig Show streams live weekday mornings, 7 a.m., YouTube, Rumble, X, and Facebook. You can join us on our live chat and, of course, available after the fact 24/7 in your favorite podcast app. That's going to do it. We'll be back here tomorrow morning on The Nick Craig Show.